But good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. It's good to have a nice, healthy crowd here. And in this different forum, I also want to thank the town of Acton and Acton Cable Access. This is a great opportunity for us to get our message out. We have been traveling around the state. We've had 6 stops, and this is the fourth, and by far my favorite to be here in Acton. Of course, this is, I think, the best medium to be able to get our message out. We have dubbed our tour Did You Know Tour, because what we have found is that a lot of people out there have no understanding about what all our agencies do. I have 5 agencies underneath the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. We have representatives and from each of those agencies here today. And I'll just go from my right to left on who those agencies are. I have Commissioner Chuck Borstel from the Commissioner of the Division of Professional Licensure. We have Gary Anderson, who is our Commissioner of the Division of Insurance. Jocelyn Day, who is representing the Department of Telecommunications and Cable, Head of Consumer Division. Greg White, who is the Chief of Staff and General Counsel of the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. Michael Ryan from the Division of Standards, as well as Commissioner Terry McGinnis from the Division of Banks. We have a pretty large portfolio underneath the Office of Consumer Affairs, and I don't think you can go down any main street in the Commonwealth and not touch upon some business that we license or have some oversight authority of. As you all know, we're consumers. We make decisions every day about what we're going to buy. Our job in the Office of Consumer Affairs is to advocate and educate consumers about all the different areas that we regulate. Last year, we had about 50,000 consumers contact our consumer divisions with questions. And we also had about 7,800 formal complaints that we followed through to conclusion. They were handled by our offices as well as our divisions. And this is the big number. We recovered close to $7.4 million for consumers in the Commonwealth. And most people don't know anything about us. So we want to increase that number. We want to get into the double digits. And hopefully if you can get the word out, we can do that. We have a hotline that consumers can call in every single day at the Office of Consumer Affairs. That number for folks is, there's a toll-free number, 888-283-3757. Also a direct line to that is 617-973-8787. You can also contact us at mass.gov/consumer to contact us on our website and to also file a complaint online. We're very active out in the community. We have a consumer education staff that's led by Shannon Desmond, as well as a great leader in our office. Robin Putnam is also out in the community every single day, going to towns and cities across the Commonwealth, letting people know about the services within our office. We have several programs that we're very proud of. We cover on the Home Improvement Contractor program, which I'm going to have Greg White speak to in just a moment. Home Improvement Contractor program is a program we're particularly proud of for the efforts that we've done. We've revamped the program. We've increased the revenue to our guarantee fund, which is money that is available for consumers to get. But Greg can outline what we've done, how we've improved it, and things consumers should know about our program. We also oversee the Lemon Law, which protects consumers who have defects in their vehicles, or if they feel that there's something wrong with their vehicle that impairs their safety. We have done some recent initiatives. Most recently, in the last few weeks, I looked to my Division of Standards because they've been out there. They are weights and measures officials around the Commonwealth. And we've just done, being the summertime, we've done a seafood survey, which is a seafood survey is going out and making sure that, gee, if you're going to buy a pound of lobster, you want to make sure you're getting a pound of lobster and that there's not water or extra things in there and that you're paying for when you really should just be getting a pound of lobster meat. And so that was a great initiative. Also at the Division of Banks, we're very proud of the efforts that they've been doing. We had an effort out there looking at predatory used auto sales. We had both our folks from our Office of Consumer Affairs, Division of Professional Licensure, as well as banks, looking at not only the financing, where banks has its oversight, but looking at consumer protection issues, making sure that people who are purchasing used vehicles, used car vehicles, were getting the straight scoop. And if they were financing, in particular, we were focusing on what you might hear about is buy here, pay here, which is often where some consumers have fewer options than most, and they are purchasing and financing through the auto sales store that they're at. So we've had a great initiative there. We are out there, and we're just, most of the time, I think it's just being out there, letting people know that we care about this stuff. We're looking out for consumers, and we want to make sure consumers are protected. In our consumer education area, what Robin Putnam does when she's out there is she speaks about scams and ID theft, ID theft monitoring and awareness. This is one of the big areas in our office that we focus on, which is letting folks know about scams. We urge people to look at our website. We communicate frequently with local police departments. We also, through their social media mechanisms, we like to get out if a local police department speaks about a scam or something that's taking place in the community. We want to let all the communities in the Commonwealth know about what we're seeing locally, and we try to utilize our social media platform to do that as well. Last year, there were a number of common scams out there. You may have heard about them both online as well as over the phone. There's a utility cutoff scam, a charity scam, IRS scam, kidnapping scam, and there's even a famous one called the Grandparent Scam. I know some of you may be some grandparents out there, and that's when someone calls up and reaches you on the phone and says, we have a grandson or a granddaughter or a son or a daughter that's in trouble, and we need you to wire money to us immediately. Obviously, they get people when they're most vulnerable, and we just ask people to use common sense. That's the best protection to yourself, and to ask a lot of questions, not only of the people on the phone, if you encounter them, but also of us, questions of us, as well as local police departments. They're the folks on the front line, so I urge you to take a look at those. We can speak to the IRS scams, grandparent scams, those types of things more specifically as we sort of get into things, but I just want to move along. Some of the other things we focus on are data breach reporting. There's a requirement in the Commonwealth where people need to, if someone's private information has been breached, they need to file a report with our Office of Consumer Affairs, as well as the Attorney General's office, and we work together on tracking that and monitoring that. And we have seen in the last, just for example, in last year, we had well over 2,000 breach notifications, which the number keeps increasing, and I think that's because we're an increasingly technological reliant community. And these are breaches that have impacted over 200,000 residents here in the Commonwealth. And that's just the ones that are reported. I think in this area, things are underreported. We have tried to do things online and try to utilize technology available to us so we can get out to as many consumers as possible. Today, we also have present Cathy Divine from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. I will give her an opportunity in a minute or at some point this morning to get up and speak, because the Office of Elder Affairs is out there and doing tremendous work. Under the leadership of Secretary Alice Bonner, of course our governor, there's an aging initiative. We think this is the best state in the entire United States to age and to do it gracefully, because you all look great. But also to allow us the opportunity to educate you about the resources available to you. There's a mass options program that I know Cathy will speak to. So rather than having this be my show, I'm going to move along. I'm going to switch over to just have you hear from each of our division heads here, and just for them to just sort of highlight briefly that's something I need to learn a little bit about. It's about what their divisions are doing, some key initiatives, some things you may be interested to hear about. And then we'll open it up to questions from our studio audience here, and we'll move along on that front. So I'll hand it over to Commissioner Borstel to speak about our Division of Professional Licensure. You might want to mention also, Commissioner, about a recent consolidation that we had from the Executive Office of Public Safety. The Department of Public Safety was merged or consolidated into the Division of Professional Licensure, and that was in a restructuring that the governor put out, and actually has been a great success. We've identified some efficiencies, and actually government's working more efficiently and better for our consumers. So, Commissioner.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Undersecretary. So, Division of Professional Licensure, we license 580,000 licensees in the Commonwealth. It's approximately 15% of the workforce. We have 39 boards of registration. Some of those are chiropractors, cosmetologists, funeral, massage therapy, podiatrists, plumbing, electrical. We oversee all the elevators in the Commonwealth. There's 44,000 elevators. We oversee the boxing and MMA. And we also have the amusement park, so we're pretty spread out. We touch almost every part of the Commonwealth, and every facet of your life. You pretty much deal with the Division of Professional Licensure. We get this accomplished with 250 employees. We have an Office of Public Safety and Inspections, which we just acquired through the Article 87, and we also have an Office of Occupational Schools. The Article 87, what it was, the advantage of that is it's a better coordination between all the multi-trade licensees. We have the electrical board, the sheet metal board, and the plumbing board. We've acquired the building code, pipe fitters, elevators. So anything that really has to do with development and construction can be housed in one agency. I think that's very good for the people that are trying to develop, and also very good for consumers. Now they have one place to go if there is a complaint. We handle about 2,000 consumer complaints a year. Our goal is to resolve those cases within 200 days. That instills consumer confidence if your complaint's coming into us and we're actually responding and reacting and working with you to make sure you get resolution. We can do anything to revocate someone's license or reprimand. So we take our job very serious, and we try to protect as consumers as much as possible. One thing I will ask that you all take a look at is our website, on mass.gov/DPL, where you can check a license. It's important before you engage with anybody who's a professional license through us that you make sure the license is in good standing. We post on the website where they are at, if they had any prior discipline. So, it gives you an opportunity to kind of do some research on your own and make sure you engage with the service that you've asked to engage with. So with that, I can pass it off to Commissioner of Insurance.
Yeah, we'd pass it on to Gary Anderson, who's our Commissioner of Insurance, but some other important things about DPL. Some of you may see these are some cards that look like Trivial Pursuit cards, and they have some interesting facts about our office. And with the Division of Professional Licensure, some interesting facts here is that over 15 million public searches were conducted on licenses at DPL, 15 million. So that we urge you to go on the website, check about a license for someone that is doing work on your home, plumbers, electricians, veterinarians, all those folks, and to make sure that you have that behind, that you find out as much as you can, and that these folks have no complaints against them. So that's important work that's taking place there. I'll hand it over to Commissioner Anderson to speak about the Division of Insurance. Which you will learn some interesting things about surcharge appeals, as well as healthcare rates, which is something that the division has responsibility to review and to place on file. Unfortunately, they have no control on our healthcare costs, but they certainly give the carriers and the plans some pushback to make sure that they are protecting consumers as they are providing health care as well. So, Commissioner.
Thanks, John, and thanks to each of you for coming today. Appreciate you coming, and thanks to ActonTV for having us. A little bit about the Division of Insurance. So we have oversight over a $50 billion insurance sector here in Massachusetts. That's a large portion of the economy. We have over 1,600 licensed insurance companies that do business here, of which over 100 of them, or around roughly 100, are domesticated or headquartered here in Massachusetts, so from Massachusetts. We license over 100,000 individuals, for example, your agent or your producer, as we call it. And why is that important? I mean, that sounds kind of impersonal, all of that, but it's important because insurance for each of us is intimate. It touches us somehow very personally in each of our lives. And so we recognize that at the Division of Insurance, that usually when we get a call, it's not somebody thanking us for the coverage that they have, but usually because there's a concern that they have. And so part of our responsibility, in addition to this oversight over this big sector, one, we want to make sure that the companies remain solvent, that they stay in business, and that's important because if they stay in business, they're able to make the payments that they've promised to make to us, the claims. The other half of that, so we have a twofold mission: make sure they stay solvent, and the second is to make sure that we protect consumers. They could be reversed, and this could be the first. And that's important because we all have insurance touches all of us in some way. And there are several ways the Division of Insurance that we do that. One of them is through our direct consumer services line. And so they take in about 20,000 inquiries every single year, that's a lot. And it covers the gamut of health to life to auto. These people are dedicated to making sure that the companies are responsive to each of us. One of the tools that we've developed recently over the past year is something known as a lost policy locator. So if you've got a life insurance or an annuity policy, we've got a mechanism in place that will help you put your information in, and throughout the nation it will collect information to help you find what may be a lost policy. So that's our consumer services. As John mentioned, we have what's known as the Board of Appeal. And if any of you have ever had an experience with this, but we are the only state in the nation that has a Board of Appeal. And what that is if you're determined by your insurance company to be at fault in an accident, you have the opportunity to challenge that. Now, in other states, you would have to challenge that with your insurance company. It's going to be a tough road to hoe. But here in Massachusetts, you come before the Division of Insurance. You sit down and you present your case to one of our hearing officers. And it will look something like, that hearing officer will pull out the Matchbox cars and you demonstrate how it was that you believe you were not at fault or less than 50% at fault. We receive over 30,000 of those cases a year, and out of those, about 66% are decided in favor of the consumer. So if you come in, you've got good odds at winning. Another mechanism is we want to make sure that those that are helping you purchase insurance, your producer, your agent, are doing so fairly, right, and doing so appropriately. And so we have a unit that investigates the producers to make sure that they are honorable in their profession. We have also another unit known as our Market Conduct Unit that examines the market as a whole to make sure that the companies, so we have making sure the producers, the people that connect you to insurance, and the companies that are providing it are also acting fairly in the market. We don't want them, if there's some kind of systematic problem that we see, then we go in and we examine them and we help them to fix it. And we've got a decent amount of leverage to do just that. So there are a number of, we believe, mechanisms in place to help each of us. So we encourage you to call if you've got an issue with us, and usually most people do have an issue with insurance. We're glad to help.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll turn it now over to Jocelyn Day, who is with the Department of Telecommunications and Cable. And Jocelyn?
Good morning. Thank you, John, for having the department here. The Department of Telecommunications and Cable is a state regulatory agency responsible for monitoring and overseeing the telecommunications and cable marketplace. We're here to make sure that consumers like you have access to high-quality communication services at just and reasonable rates. Our jurisdiction basically thrives from the state legislature as well as the federal government. the Federal Communications Commission in Washington, D.C. We share authority on a lot of those issues in those industries. The department's head is Commissioner Karen Charles Peterson, and unfortunately she couldn't be here today. And I'm here as the Consumer Division Director to talk to you about how we assist consumers. We feel that consumer protection is critical. Communications is evolving. Technology is evolving. The landline telephone market has changed, and it's important for consumers to stay up to date and informed about those changes. You have consumer protections and rights, and our Consumer Division is here to help you understand what they are. The Department of Telecom and Cable also oversees 350 landline telephone companies and 9 cable operators in the Commonwealth doing services, and they're required to be registered with our office. So there is a lot going on in those spaces, and we want to make sure that consumers know that on your telephone bill, if you are a cable and telephone subscriber, our telephone number is actually on the bill. So we encourage you to call us if, in fact, you cannot resolve an issue with your cable or telecom provider. You can call our office. Our office operates a hotline Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and staff are there to help you resolve complaints that you may have regarding your provider that you haven't been able to address them. There are services that we don't regulate, like wireless, internet, satellite TV, but we offer assistance to any communication service issue that you may have. We want to try to help consumers find a place to get answers to their questions, to know what your rights are, particularly when you're purchasing these services, some advice and guidance that you need to be aware of so that you're getting the services that you want to get.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I think one of the most important aspects that she mentioned, I just want to highlight again, is even though the authority of the department is more limited than people think, which is on landline and cable and telecom, the last piece of information that Jocelyn just mentioned is the ability, if you have a wireless concern on because most people are using cell phones these days, the department has great relationships with all the wireless providers in the Commonwealth, and they are terrific at being an advocate or helping you, guide you to the right person with those carriers as well. So we don't have regulatory authority, but what we do have is the ability to be a voice for the consumer and to help guide you to the right resolution. At this moment, I'm going to turn to Greg White to speak more specifically about what I think is one of our flagship programs in the Office of Consumer Affairs, which is the Home Improvement Contractor Program. And Greg, you can speak to how we've revamped that program. We've increased revenues. We've increased registrations. All these things are better for consumers out there, as well as a guide for all the contractors out there. I think they want to have a relationship with our office and to make sure that they have the right registrations as well as licenses, because that's only going to make them more appealing to consumers out there if they've been in touch with our office, have a connection with our office, and make sure they're doing the right thing. So, Greg?
Good morning. One of the initiatives that we've implemented over the past 2.5 years is the home improvement contracting compliance. In Massachusetts, if you're doing home improvement contracting, you're required to be registered with our office. There are about 27,000 home improvement contractors in Massachusetts. And when you think of it, home improvement is one of the, homes are your biggest, for the most part, your biggest asset. And you can't get away with doing even minimal work without spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And so it's important to ensure that the individual who's doing your work is in fact registered through our office. Last year, because of our work with the municipalities, we were able to increase our registrations 34% and increase revenue to the guarantee fund, which I'll talk about in a moment, 50%. Last year alone, consumers spent over $3.5 billion here in Massachusetts, which is quite a bit of money. At the end of the day, you want to ensure that the individual who's doing your work is properly registered. If you're doing home improvement contracting, you're required to be registered to our office. You pay a registration fee that you renew every 2 years. In addition to that, you pay into the guarantee fund, which is a fund that protects you, the consumer. If you are working with a registered home improvement contractor, you have a written contract, provided you meet the other criteria. If the work was not properly done, if it was shoddy work, provided you seek a judgment and maintain all the other criteria, you can recoup up to $10,000 from the guarantee fund, which most consumers don't know about. Because of our increased compliance, up until this past year, if in fact you received an award, you had to wait upwards of 2 years to receive your reimbursement. Now, because of the increased compliance, within 30 days of that paperwork being completed, the consumer will get their check. And we also maintain a database in which you, the consumer, can reach out to us to determine whether or not that contractor had any disciplinary problems, whether or not the contractor had their registration revoked, whether or not it had been suspended, or whether or not that contractor had in fact been fined. So again, we encourage consumers to reach out to us before they enter into a contract with a home improvement contractor. I also like to say that most of the folks out there doing home improvement contractor are legitimate. They're there to do the right thing. But like any entity, there's good apples and bad apples. And our office has been dealing with a number of the bad apples over the course of the past year. We had a woman in Natick who had put down $60,000 to do some home improvement. That was just the down payment. They would remove the roof and they were going to renovate the second floor for an in-law apartment. The individual took the $60,000, took down the roof, and then disappeared. And this was in November. So she's been without a roof. So we've been working closely with law enforcement to ensure that justice is served. In any event, I encourage you folks to use our toll-free number if you're doing any home improvement contractor to make sure before you enter into a contract that that individual is properly registered. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Greg. I think it's important. This is, I mentioned, a sort of a flagship program in the Office of Consumer Affairs, and I want to give a specific shout-out to our local communities, not only here in Acton, but all around the Commonwealth. There are local building inspectors as well as town clerks. When people are going in to get building permits, what we have found is that a lot of, and we welcome this and we love that we have partners in our communities doing this, they ask the contractor if they have the appropriate licenses, as well as if they have a home improvement contractor registration as well. That's important. We really applaud the great work that communities are doing there. And also, what we found is that there are an increasing number of complaints going to our local police departments. I see we have some folks from the local police department here in the audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do. You may be hearing a lot more from folks where you have a contractor who's walking off the job and they're contacting the police department. They're a great resource, so good to use them. Now I'm going to turn it over to Michael Ryan, who is representing our Division of Standards. I think the first thing people say is standards. What do they do? Well, it's weights and measures, and they make sure that if you're pumping for a gallon of gas, you're getting a gallon of gas. Of course, making reference to my pound of lobster meat, I think you should go for 2 pounds. And Michael's going to make sure that you get your 2 pounds of lobster meat for that you can boil up in the pot. But we've had some also some great initiatives over the last year with our Division of Standards has been out there. They've been communicating not only with other communities that have weights and measures officials out there, training them, but also informing them about skimmers. You might hear about that word skimmer, which is a device or some sort of mechanism that is inserted into the pump, oftentimes after hours. The gas stations are not aware that this is taking place, and they're stealing credit card information. So we've had an initiative out there just trying to make sure that our inspectors and those in the local communities know what to look for. So not only calling our office, the first call you should always make in that situation if you suspect something has happened, that your credit card's been compromised, is to call your local police department. But I will turn it over to Michael, and you can speak a little bit about the Division of Standards.
Thank you, John, and thank you, everybody, for coming. As John mentioned, most of our duties relate to weights and measures, and also ensuring that the devices used in the weights and measures commercially are accurate. Mostly what you'll see are relating to us will be the little stickers that you see on a scale or a gas pump. They're there every year. We test every pump annually. We test every scale annually. If we don't test them, we train people to test them. Basically, how it works is if a town has 5,000 residents or less, the state will they will automatically go in and test those towns. For a town with over 5,000 residents, we will either train a sealer of weights and measures for that town, or we'll have a contract with that town to do the annual testing. So either way, either someone from the state or a local sealer will be checking your weighing and measuring devices. Mostly, like I said, what you see is the gas pumps, and as John mentioned, unfortunately, over the last couple of years, skimming devices have been found. Recently, thankfully, not many. We are communicating with the owners of the gas stations and also the service techs who play a big role as well. We communicate with them, we work with them a lot. Quite often, they're the ones who find these devices. They're out there a lot. Again, call the police department if you do see anything, and the police will contact us, the station will contact us. A simple thing to do is obviously to pay cash. It takes a few seconds longer, but it's a lot better than trying to repair your credit history. The other thing you can do is we are encouraging gas station owners to put a security tape on the devices, instructing them where to put it. Unfortunately, we have seen where they'll put the tape on and it's in the wrong spot where you may still be able to open a device. So we're instructing them on that, and also to use more brand-specific tape. Sometimes there's a bit of a generic tape out there, and while it's on the dispenser or the pump, it's good. But if we see something that's, Hess or Shell or Sunoco, I think it's a little more reliable that the staff are actually out there every day checking the devices. The other thing to do, obviously, not so much in our division, but ATMs we found. They've been found there too. Don't be shy. If something doesn't look right, shake it, poke it, rattle it around, and if it comes off in your hand, obviously it's not supposed to be there. So again, call the police department. But I would say pay cash or credit instead of debit. But we are communicating, like I said, with the owners of the gas stations and the chains that are out there. It's in their interest too. No one wants to go to a gas station that's been on the news. So what else do we do? We also, speaking of gas, we regulate the advertising of the gas. So all the price signs need to be accurate. The signs on the dispensers, signs on the street, we make sure that they're correct and you're not getting fooled into, $1.94 gas when on the street. When you actually come in, you're hitting the button and it's a totally different price. So these are things that we check on our annual inspections or random inspections. We also regulate the licensing of auto glass and auto body repair shops. There's a process that has to be followed, getting a bond, references. So somebody can't just open up mom and pop auto body without going through a process. They are held accountable, and there's a bond there to protect the consumer. Regarding pricing, we do random inspections, including some seafood inspections. The results of that are being compiled, so we'll see how that goes at the moment. But yes, as you said, if you go somewhere and you want a pound of lobster or a pound of whatever, you want to pay for the pound of meat, not the pint or two of water that it's being dumped into and then weighed. So again, we do check all the scales on a regular basis. Every scale is checked annually. If you go to a store and you think the scale is wrong, doesn't start at 0, there should be a little sticker on there, usually red or green. Feel free to call the number. We will come and we'll check it out. The other place where you might see, let me see, our influence, oil trucks. Heating oil, home heating oil delivery during the winter. Every year, every truck in the Commonwealth is tested, either by the state or by a local weights and measures sealer. Those meters are accurate. If they're not, we can put them out of service and make sure that they're repaired, and we recheck them. So there's a metal seal on there, a wire seal. If that's broken, that's a citation or a fine for that oil company. So we randomly check them through the winter, or we can check them year-round, but mostly in the winter. Making deliveries, we'll make sure that seal is intact, knowing that if you're buying 100 gallons, you're getting 100 gallons. Same with the propane. Propane's becoming a lot more popular. Up this part of the country, down south, it's the big thing, but up here, we're seeing more and more propane. Same thing. The state will test those trucks annually, making sure you're getting what you're paying for. I think that's it. Yeah. Like I said, grocery stores, we do random pricing checks, price verification checks. We'll go in, we'll take a random sample, 50, 100, 200 items, and make sure they all ring up correctly. We make sure that the scanners that you see around the store, the customer price checking scanners, we make sure they're correct, that they're working, they're accurate, they print out a label if you need it. And again, there's citations and fines if they're not complied to. That's pretty much, I think, what we do.
That's a good portfolio, and I think when you go to the gas station, I know Michael mentioned some terrific tips on sometimes paying cash. Another good tip to know is try to use the pump closest to the attendant, because most times people will not be putting skimming devices close to or within eyesight of the attendant who's there. So use common sense. What he's talking about on a security tape, on a lot of pumps, next time you go to fill up, you can take a look at the security pump, and you see a tape either on the either over the keyhole where you can open up the pump, or on the edge. So if someone opens up the pump, the security tape will break, which is an indication that someone opened the pump without opened the device without replacing the security tape. So just some common sense. Always speak to the local attendant if you suspect something is up. And of course, if you feel like your information's been compromised, call your local police department. I'm giving you guys a lot of work today. Of course, I saved the best for last, our Division of Banks. I'm going to be attacked by all my other divisions, but some great work being done at the Division of Banks, and some impressive numbers there too. So, Commissioner McGinnis.
Thank you very much, John. And Mike, can you let me know when you finish up the lobster evaluation in Lynn? Because I want to order a lobster pie at the porthole, and I want to make sure I'm getting what I'm paying for. It's great being here in Acton. It's a lot greener here than it is in Boston. As John mentioned, Commissioner of the Division of Banks, and we have a fairly broad jurisdiction. We cover two generic areas of financial institutions. One is the traditional depository institutions. Those are banks, cooperative banks, and credit unions that are under Massachusetts jurisdiction and operate in Massachusetts and, for the most part, in New England. We also have responsibility for what we call non-depository financial institutions. They tend to be national organizations such as mortgage brokers, mortgage lenders, loan servicers, money service businesses, consumer finance companies, any type of financial services or products that are offered in Massachusetts. The Division of Bank will have some jurisdiction over how they're offered, how they're disclosed, and whether they operate fairly. Let's talk a little bit about the depository institutions, because that's probably our biggest responsibility. For all of the banks and credit unions and cooperative banks that are chartered under Massachusetts, the Division of Banks is what we call the prudential regulator. Every year, we send a team of about 7 or 8 examiners into each and every Massachusetts chartered bank and credit union and conduct what is called a safety and soundness examination. And this is a very thorough examination. We look at a number of factors that affect depository institutions. The first thing we look at is how strong is the capital of these banks? Will they be around for a while? What are their earnings? Are they earning enough to make the loans that they're providing to consumers and small business in the area? We also look at their management. How strong is their management? Do they have effective and trained managers in place who are responsible for the institution? We also look at liquidity. We want to make sure when you go in to get your deposits, that there is going to be money there for you to get. We also look at consumer compliance to ensure. Now, Massachusetts has probably the strongest consumer compliance laws of any state in the country, and our division is responsible for ensuring that those compliance regulations are complied with by our financial institutions. We also look at a very important emerging area in financial institutions is technology. Cybersecurity. Do they have systems in place to ensure that the data is protected? Are they up to date on what's going on in the area of technology and cybersecurity? And then another responsibility is anti-money laundering, to ensure that money coming in is coming from the right sources and going to the right places. It's a very technical area of responsibility, but we have a terrific group of examiners who are aware of it, who are very, very savvy in those areas. Now, in the non-depository institution, the finance companies, the mortgage brokers and lenders, we have responsibility for licensing those any of those companies that will operate in Massachusetts. So even though they might be based in California or Utah, they have to be registered in Massachusetts. And we look at the financial wherewithal of these companies. On an annual basis, we will also send in examiners to look at consumer compliance. Now, because these companies operate on a national basis, we will cooperate with other states and send a group of examiners, representative of several states, to look at some of these national companies to ensure that they're operating appropriately throughout the United States. And very often, Massachusetts will take the lead on these because we have a reputation of being savvy in these areas. Now, in addition to our responsibility for ensuring that financial institutions are operating in a safe and sound manner and are complying with consumer laws, we also take our responsibility for consumers very seriously. As the Undersecretary mentioned, we looked at buy here, pay here used car companies. Now, not everybody that lives in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can get a loan from a bank. Banks have very, very high standards into whom they're going to lend to, but people still need to borrow money. So very often they will go to non-traditional lenders, whether it be for a used car or something else. What we will look at is to ensure that the individuals who don't have the traditional resources are not taken advantage of unfairly, that the interest rates that they're charged are fair interest rates considering the risks, and also that they have the appropriate amount of disclosures that they can make a reasoned decision in making a financial choice to operate with the company. So the buy here, pay here was very effective, joining with a number of our other divisions under the Office of Consumer Affairs under the Undersecretary's leadership. Another area that we are very, very proud of is we've taken, as the Undersecretary mentioned, the governor is very, very interested in issues confronting aging in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And he has a task force comprised of a number of different departments, but more particularly the Office of Elder Affairs, whom we are working very, very closely with. But one of the areas that is of major concern is financial abuse of the elderly. And very often it's the banks and the credit unions, the tellers and the managers there who deal with these people on a daily basis are probably the first ones to have a sense that something is amiss, that something is going wrong. At the same time, older Americans deserve to be treated with respect. The decisions should be respected. They should be treated with dignity. So you have to balance the right of privacy, the right of dignity, with a sense of something might be going wrong and these individuals might be taken advantage of. So with the Division of Banks, as in cooperation with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs and other agencies, have reinstituted a program that we've just opened a brand new website for all of our banks and credit unions that alert banks and credit unions to what protocols should banks and credit unions use to detect financial abuse? What resources are out there in the community to direct the elders to? And what are their legal rights in terms of reporting these to appropriate authorities? And working with the with the Department of Elder Affairs, we have a great website that we have just opened that banks and credit unions are using. We've gotten a lot of great comments about that as well. And we're also preparing training programs and training materials for our banks and credit unions so that there'll be a consistency in the way banks and credit unions handle this very important issue. And hopefully at the end of the year with the Department of Elder Affairs, we'll also be hosting small coffees for our banks and credit unions to meet resources in the community for elders to ensure that they're being protected. And not to take up too much other time, but a thing that's of major interest, I think, to everyone here is the issue of cybersecurity. You want to make sure that your data, your information is fully protected. Rest assured that the banks and credit unions in Massachusetts are up to snuff. They're doing a fantastic job, and we're very, very confident in the ability of our banks and credit unions, no matter what their size is, to handle this threat. But the threat is always evolving. It's always changing. So training is critically important. So the Division of Banks, in cooperation with other states, have developed a number of cybersecurity protocols that we have rolled out to our banks and credit unions. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago with 125 bank CEOs and boards of directors. The commissioner of the Division of Banks in Texas and myself hosted it. Massachusetts is the first state to roll out these new protocols for cybersecurity for smaller banks and credit unions, followed by Texas and then the rest of the United States. So we're really proud of those initiatives. But all of those initiatives are focused on protection of the consumer and of the individuals. And that's something that Governor Baker has in his top priority, and all of us as part of his administration are following through on that.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. As you can see, we have a lot going on at the Division of Banks. Let me just highlight one thing on the elder financial abuse is that if people, consumers out there, feel that they're being taken advantage of, not only by people in the financial institutions, but by relatives. I think the highest percentage of folks who are maybe being taken advantage of is they're feeling pressure from a relative that is a loved one, but they don't really know if they're getting the straight story. I encourage all of those folks to reach out to us, or to reach out to the Division of Banks, or to reach out to our office. We're glad to put you in touch with someone who might be an independent resource for you to turn to ask questions about whether something is right or wrong. Also at the Division of Banks, we have, you focused a little bit on the non-depository side of things, mortgage lenders, debt collectors, money transfer transmitters. Those types of businesses are also overseen by the Division of Banks. We want to make sure if there's someone out there trying to collect a debt, they're doing it in the proper way, and they're not being abusive in their practices. So be mindful of that as well. We're a resource, even if it's not in our office. It's important that you can turn to us to put you in touch with the right state agency or federal agency that can help you. At this moment, I am, just as a quick thing, I want to turn it over to Cathy Divine from the Office of Elder Affairs, a great partner of ours, just to speak about some terrific things taking place with the Office of Elder Affairs. Then we will open it up to all of you to ask your questions. All the easy questions come to me, and the tough questions will go to Commissioner McGinnis. So with that being said, Cathy.
Great, thank you. I'm always so happy to be invited to come along with you. We've had some great presentations around the state, and it's so nice to be able to share information about some of the programs that we administer through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. Let me ask, is there anybody here that has Medicare? Okay, a few people. All right, I thought there might have been a few. Now, if you ever had any questions about your Medicare, or if you ever had any problems, you were receiving bills that you thought maybe you were being overcharged for something, or maybe you weren't sure whether or not you had the right Medicare prescription drug plan. Do you know who you might want to talk to about that? Okay. You could talk to me about that, but actually it would be easier for you to talk with a SHINE counselor. Have any of you heard of that? Okay, SHINE, it's an acronym. It stands for Serving the Health Insurance Needs of Everyone. And really, that's everyone with Medicare. And if you have any questions about your Medicare, there is a SHINE counselor located at every senior center. So you probably didn't even know that he or she was there. It's a free service. This is what they do. They're Medicare experts. You can just make a call to the senior center and set up an appointment. Particularly, you want to do that in the fall when Medicare has its open enrollment period, which begins on October 15th and it goes through October 7th. So think of it as just doing like a little benefit checkup. You know, whatever it is that you have for insurance now, you want to make sure that that's going to work for you next year. Because these, especially the Medicare prescription drug plans, they change. They change their premiums, they change their copays. You know, you want to make sure that you're in the one that's best for you. And then, along with that, with the Medicare prescription drug coverage, has anybody heard of the donut hole? Okay, I see a few heads nodding, yes. All right, I know if I said that to you, you'd be like, donuts? Dunkin' Donuts? No. The donut hole, if you've heard of it, you know it's a gap in the Medicare prescription drug coverage. And if you were to reach that gap, this is when you would find your out-of-pocket costs go up. A SHINE counselor can help you with that because there are programs that you may qualify for that will help reduce your costs if you were to reach that coverage gap. One of those programs is called Prescription Advantage. It's a state-sponsored pharmacy assistance program. It doesn't replace what you have for your Medicare prescription drug coverage, but it works with it. So what it does is act as a supplement. SHINE can help you with that. And then one other program that I wanted to mention, one of my favorites is Mass Options, because this is a program, it's a referral service. It's a toll-free phone number that you can call, and if you are unsure of really where to start. So if you think of it, if you needed services, whether they were home care services, or if you had a parent, one of your parents needed services, but you don't even know where to begin. Okay, this Mass Options program, this phone number is available 7 days a week, which is very unusual. I'm just going to read off the number. It's 1-844-422-6277. And there's some brochures here today that I hope all of you will take one, because it's just one phone call that you have to make and you'll be directed to the appropriate agency that can help you with whatever it is that you need. Okay. And one last thing I want to mention, because we've been talking a lot about scams. I just want to give you a heads up about a scam that hasn't even started yet, but I know it will. Medicare, in the near future, I believe it's going to start sometime next year, and I don't really know what their plan is for rolling this out, but Medicare is going to be replacing Medicare cards, because what they're going to be doing is taking the Social Security number off of the Medicare card. So when you think that we have over 1 million Medicare beneficiaries just in Massachusetts alone, you know, this is a project that will take a while. But here's where the scam comes in. How many people do you think will receive phone calls saying, oh, I'm just calling from Medicare, and I just want to confirm your address and your Social Security number. We want to make sure that this is correct. So just so that you know, Medicare will never call you. Okay? They don't make phone calls. If you have a question for Medicare, you have to call them. So if you get a call, somebody saying, you know, we're just getting prepared or ready to send you out your new Medicare card, we want to make sure it's going to the right place, just hang up. So
That's an excellent point, Cathy, because what we've seen out there is where consumers are most vulnerable is with the calls that are coming in. You feel safe in your home, so you feel that if someone is calling your home number, they must know you. Always be skeptical. I think what we're seeing also, besides people, they want to get private information, and so the Medicare scam will be one that will be coming. What we're seeing out there is what we call spoofing, which is where a number that comes up on your caller ID is either a local number or a number that you may recognize. And oftentimes, these scammers, it's not that. They are able, by computer, to put in a number that is false, to give the false sense of comfort to someone who's picking up the phone. So never give private information over the phone. Just like you said, when it comes to Medicare, they're not going to be calling you. The IRS won't be calling you. So if you get calls, be skeptical. If you have questions, you can always hang up, call your local police department. There you go, guys. Or you can give our office a call, and we're glad to tell you what we've heard. So,
if you ever do get one of those calls, also let your local senior center know, because they will put something out in their newsletter to make sure that that information is getting to all the seniors in the towns.
And the police departments put it on their websites as well.
Exactly.
And Facebook pages as well. So I think at this point, I'll just open it up. You've heard an awful lot from us. Okay. If you have questions about scams or any of the divisions that we have here, please, I will use this opportunity to open it up to all of you. Well, we have a gentleman in front here. Yes, sir.
Oh, a two-part question, if I may. First one is a simple one. We've heard a lot of telephone numbers and websites. I assume those are all in the literature that you have passed out?
Yes, they are in the literature, but it's always good to, I think the most important one may be just our main number.
Okay.
Just to call us, because we'll refer you to whatever division you need, or Elder Affairs if that. But yes, it's in our literature.
Okay,
so
thank you.
I encourage people, mass.gov/consumer will bring you to our main website.
Okay.
And then we can put you in touch with whoever you need to be in touch with.
Okay, now the second question may be a little more difficult. I hope not, but I think it's you, John, is it?
Or
yeah.
Michael?
Michael, I'm sorry. The question is, are there standards to which a repair shop or garage has to maintain his property?
That I do not know.
You know,
so,
that is a good question.
Well, I think what I would recommend on that particular question is to call your local town hall.
Okay.
Often an auto dealer or an auto body shop or a repair shop, they have required licenses within the town. That's a good place to start. And of course, it's a local solution. They can also, if they can't answer the question, refer you to the right state agency if there are some state or federal regulations involved.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We have someone in the second row. Third row.
Hi. You offer an impressive array of services, and I always feel very well taken care of in Massachusetts. You've mentioned that Massachusetts is leading other states in a number of areas, and I'm just wondering how much of a range is there in other states of the kinds of consumer services that are available. Can you say something about that?
Well, sure. I think every state has its own structure. For example, in New York State, you have a financial services area that just focuses on financial services, but they have a smaller consumer area. I think every state does it differently. I'm a little partial to this one, not only because I'm here and this is my role, but I think all our states work well together, and they're actually, Shannon Desmond from my office just was in Washington at a conference where we had representatives from all the consumer affairs departments around the country, and it was sort of an information sharing as well as best practices forum. So I know our setup most intimately, and I'm a little partial to it, but I think every state has some form of this office. Oftentimes we are, there's some confusion but I see it as a supplement with the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office has a Consumer Protection Division, which does terrific work. I see us in the Office of Consumer Affairs as the regulators, and the enforcers are with the Attorney General's office. We, like with the Elder Affairs office, work very closely with the Attorney General's offices, and so I think it's important that you know that state government, we're not just working in silos. What is important to Governor Baker and important to other leaders here in the state is that we all work together to protect our consumers. So there are many resources out there. We just want people to know about all of them. And other states are doing some great work, but I think we're leading on our Did You Know tours because I think it's important. I don't think people have any idea about all the resources available to them and that they can give us a call. Yes, in the second row here. With the
Who wants to go next?
I can, yeah.
And then we'll pass it down over here and then get to you here in the front.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, thank you for this valuable information and coming here and educating us. My question is, again, talking about different states. If I get a call from Texas or California or even international, and I know that it's a fraud call, who do I contact? Do I contact local office here in Massachusetts or, contact Texas or some other places?
I think the best is always to start local. If you feel you've been scammed, I think the first place is always a good place, is right in your local community. Just let your local police department know. You also have an option of contacting the Attorney General's office. They have a consumer number, or our office as well. You really have so many options to go to on that. I think we all work together. We all communicate with each other. So really just making one call should suffice. You don't have to call all three of us, the Attorney General's office, my office, as well as the police department. But you should reach out to someone and just let them know that you suspect something is going on. A good tip on that, if you don't recognize a number or you feel that it's a number coming from out of state, let it go to voicemail or let it go to your answering machine. The reason being is that if you actually pick up the call, often what we've learned is that increases the volume of calls because you then go on to a list of, gee, this is someone that will engage and pick up the phone. They love that. So I think it's always good to let an unknown number or a call from another state or something internationally, unless you know where it's coming from, that you should just let it go to your voicemail. If they want you or need you, they'll leave a message. But don't engage, don't pick up the phone because that will put you on a list and your calls will actually just increase. So that was a good question. So we'll go here and then we'll get to you. You'll get a prize because, yes.
So this is a very personal thing, but now I know where to send it, so that's great. Thank you very much for that. 3 years ago, we bought our daughter a Vitamix for Christmas, and they've loved it. It's worked really well. It was supposed to be warranted for 7 years, and it recently broke down. She called the company. They had sent in their warranty. The company said, oh, you need your sales receipt. So they're not asking for their money back. I don't see why they need that. That was 3 years ago. We don't have it any longer. It was a gift. They don't have it. So I said, you call them back and say it was a gift, and we don't have it. So, but now I know if that doesn't work, we have somewhere else to send them. So thank you very much.
No, sure thing. I think that's we're a good resource, but in a lot of cases, when there comes to enforcement against a company, the Attorney General's office is better equipped to handle that. So they also, if there are a large volume of calls about a company or complaints about a company, we will communicate that to the Attorney General's office, as well as they will keep their own tracking and records on that. So if a company has bad practices and they're not honoring a warranty, we need to know that, but also, more importantly, the Attorney General's office needs to know that. They're doing some great work there.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fatime Mojtabai. I think I know the answer to my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway for public to know. Are there any regulatory oversight over condominium associations? Condominium, I'm a condo owner. I consider myself a consumer because I pay fees to management company to provide me with services. So the way it turns out, there is systemic scam across the country, including in Massachusetts, where condominium owners are being scammed by management companies, condominium lawyers, and straw boards that they put in place under fraud election. So I've been working on this now for 3 years almost. $1 million of our money has gone to the management company. And we're trying to figure out why, and they're preventing us to get records, which by law, the law is there. By law, we're entitled to see financial records of the association, but they feel they can get away with it with impunity because there is no enforcement. There is no regulatory oversight. We've gone to Attorney General. They have repeatedly declined to take our cases. And last I heard this past week was through my legislator that we are private organizations, and therefore the Attorney General cannot or typically does not look into condominium scam and fraud. We're talking significant amount. They are very good in hiding it from public. When it happens, it's too late usually. And you've seen Shawmut case in Essex County, the guy in Lynn, the guy in Lexington. It's part of it is debt collection problems with the condo lawyers. They think that they can get away with abusing the law because they are sitting, they're being paid. I pay. If I have, the only recourse that I have is to take them to court. That's going to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. They are sitting on my money, so I'm being jeopardized twice. I pay for them to fight them. It's crazy. Now, we were talking about the difference between states. Unfortunately, as far as condominiums are concerned, Massachusetts is not a leader. In fact, this is, as I said, it's a national, what I call national housing crisis. The state that's a leader is Florida. They passed, are you aware, they passed a new condo law in Florida as of July 1st. They did a very good grand jury investigation, which told the legislature what I'm telling you. And they now all these problems that I'm personally facing, they're not giving me condo financial documents, these are criminalized in Florida. And in Florida, your counterpart in Florida Department of Business Regulations, they oversee condos, and they're going to get more help after this law because they realize there's so much going on. So, back to my question. Well, please prove me wrong.
I will prove you wrong because I think there's hope in there. Thank you also for the information about Florida. I do want to take the opportunity to recognize we have a legislator, an aide from a legislator's office here in the room. Representative Benson's office has a representative here. I think it's Josh here in the back. So I encourage you to connect with Josh. Now, there's so much to what you just stated, but I do want to address some of the things. As far as specific oversight of condominium associations, none of my agencies have any direct oversight there. That can always change, and that's why I encourage you to speak to Representative Benson's office, or she is recently was the chair of the Consumer Affairs and Professional Licensure Committee, And she is a tremendous advocate for not only her constituents, but for consumers here in the Commonwealth. So that's one place to start. The Attorney General's office is a place, I understand you've reached out to them. I think often things in isolation are difficult for them to, when I say isolation, when it appears to them that things are not related or is lower volume, it's difficult to get attention to the issue. I think what you speak about is a consumer protection concern. There is Chapter 93A, which is the consumer protection law here in the Commonwealth that protects consumers against unfair and deceptive practices that are taking place out there. And that's also illegal and criminal activity. I would encourage you to continue to reach out to the Attorney General's office. Also work with your local legislator to try to make sure that they can speak to, in the Consumer Protection Committee and Professional Licensure Committee, can take a look at this very issue. We have tremendous legislators here in the state. That's the only way that we become a leader in this area. And we have some great legislators who can take a lead on that. And I do urge you to keep reaching out to the Attorney General's office. Also, there are mechanisms through looking to a private attorney. I know there's a cost there involved, but it's good to at least discuss with someone about what some options may be to you on the private side. And if you feel that that the activity is criminal in nature, it might make sense just to, I turn to our local police department. They may have some information about if something is more taking place in the community. They should at least know about it and know who you're also speaking with. They're great partners on the law enforcement side there as well. I will ask my other commissioners up here if you have any thoughts. You did raise something, I actually, thinking of the Commissioner McGinnis, when you talk about debt collection, we do have a little hook in there, right? And we can help you out with that. So I'll let Commissioner McGinnis talk about debt collection and that type of what's permissible and what isn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, lawyers are exempt from the definition of debt collectors for purposes of the statute. So I don't have jurisdiction of lawyers, but it is something that we at the division are pushing for a legislative remedy on that, because there are certainly some law firms that just focus on debt collection, and the fact that they are exempt by law is unfair. So it's one of the legislative proposals that we're looking at.
Can I ask a question? I was
just going to mention one thing, but you mentioned on the lawyers, but there is the Board of Bar Overseers, so if you feel a lawyer is behaving inappropriately. Now I'll turn it back to your question.
I was told that if a law firm generates more than 50% of its profit from collecting debt, it's considered by federal law debt collector. Is that not the case in Massachusetts?
I don't know the answer to that, but under state law it is exempt. We don't have jurisdiction over the lawyers that are engaged in debt. But I can. There might be some requirements under federal law that they provide in connection with their activities. So it's more of a process rather than having anybody having jurisdiction over them to pull a license or bring an enforcement action against them.
So maybe before we go today, you can get some information from the Division of Banks, and we can look into that question. They have a consumer division that can look into that specific question about debt collectors on the federal level. We don't have any oversight statewide, but I do urge you to continue to have a dialogue with the Attorney General's office, your representative in the legislature as well. That's a terrific resource available to you. And you have a lot of great legislators who are doing great work, like Representative Benson.
I have a question for you. One of the things, of course, that's a problem is the phone scams. We have do not call law. Is that fall under your jurisdiction and enforcement? Because I would think if we could tighten that up, you would be able to cut down the number of these scam calls that are coming in.
You're absolutely right. Yes, the do not call list, which I encourage people to sign up for and to stay current with, does fall under the Office of Consumer Affairs. I think the struggle we have with that is that the numbers, we can't keep up with all the numbers that are out there. We are trying diligently to be as up-to-date as we possibly can. And we also, again, work with the Attorney General's office at following up on those who abuse the law. The difficulty for us, though, is tracking those people down. Often they're sitting overseas, or they're sitting in another state, or where they have less restrictions, and they're just dialing away. These call or spoofing calls often are generated by computers, where they're making thousands of calls in a minute. And so that's why you don't pick up, because then you'll be on that list. Yes, we have oversight there. It's a source of frustration for me personally, as well as for the office, because we can't keep up with the technology and the people who are out there trying to beat all of us. We can't keep track of all the numbers. But we are working very closely, and I know that Jocelyn would mention this. Our commissioner serves on a number of national committees at the FCC in Washington, and speaks a great deal about this. And whatever the latest thing is going on at the Federal Communications Commission, we're trying to implement here in the state. So thank you for the question. Oh, do you want to say something else, Jocelyn?
I just want to add that we often, please. Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to add that while we do have a state do not call list, consumers should get on the national do not call list with the FCC. So state and national lists won't prevent all the calls, but it does help.
Including cell? Including cell?
Yes.
Yes.
Cell phones and landlines.
Well, I'm a fellow who does pick up the phone because I kind of make it a hobby. I have here a spreadsheet. It's 10 pages long. It has 165 calls documented, going back to 2014 for Rachel from Cardholder Services, and the ones I started in 2015 with the others, and I'd be happy to present this to anyone who would like a copy. I report almost all of them to the Federal Trade Commission and the Federal Communications Commission. When they're really bad, I report them. There's a Senate Committee on the Elderly, and also Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri keeps track of these. And one time I had the police come out to my house because someone called me back and was starting to swear at me about my wife because I guess I'd hung up on this person or something, so I recorded that. Now, I want to mention something about recording. I record a few of these, but under Massachusetts law, I have to say I'm recording, or I'd like to record this. Is that okay? And much to my surprise, they sometimes don't hang up. I just find that amazing. But sometimes what they say is that, oh, we're recording this anyway. Well, they're breaking Massachusetts law because they haven't told me that they were recording it. So, okay, and I'd also like to bring up one other...
I'd love to have you come work for me.
Okay, well, okay, well, anyway, I'll give you this before we
I would love to have that, and I thank you for doing what you're doing. I know it's turned into a hobby, turned into something more, but you're educated and you're standing up for your rights. So keep at it.
Okay. Well, I'd like to bring up another thing. I have here a copy of a forged check from a credit union in Texas that I received a few weeks ago in response to a Craigslist listing. This is a cashier's check from a credit union in Texas, which I discovered doesn't issue cashier's checks. And the way this thing works, people send you a cashier's check, and then they cancel the deal, and they want me to send them the money back. And fortunately, I almost got caught on this one, but I didn't. So
that's a scam out there where they ask you to pay for something and that they will reimburse you. And often, when as the commissioner of banks will say, once you write that check and you're responsible for it.
Right.
So that's how they hook it and get the money from you.
Well, what happened on this one was we were selling a piano for $900. So suddenly I got a check for $2,450, which allegedly included the moving costs. So then I was going to be paying the movers in cash, but fortunately none of that happened.
That is a scam out there, and so obviously if someone is offering you more money than what you are selling something for, that's a red flag. So be mindful of that as a scam. thank you for mentioning that.
Let me just add one other thing. This person would communicate with me only by text, not by phone, or not because that way I couldn't figure out where they were or trace them or whatever.
You're better than I am on the phone with the text.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
But be mindful if you're on Craigslist or eBay or those types of organizations that appear legitimate up front. They are legitimate, but often these scammers use the veil of eBay or the veil of Craigslist as being something that's more legitimate. So just try to have common sense. You can always, just give us a call or give a relative a call and just run it by them before you actually engage and do something. So good for you for, but then you said $900 for the piano. Where do I go?
It's still for sale. So if you'd like, talk to me afterward.
That's right.
But you have to pay the movers to move.
Oh, there you go. Thank you so much for your information and good for you for looking out for yourself. Yes.
Hi. Do your offices accommodate for people whom English is not their first language?
We have some services. It's more informal than formal. I know at the Division of Professional Licensure, we have for some of the licenses and for some of the businesses, we have, or in some of these agencies have their materials in different languages. So I urge people to contact us and ask where we have translated our brochures or where we have the ability to translate. In some specific consumer complaints, what we have done just in my immediate office is that we have employees who speak the language, and they often have served in a sort of a good consumer-friendly capacity and offered translator services. But we do that just to try to make our services available to as many people in the Commonwealth. Recently, we had a hearing at the Division of Insurance. This individual, English was not their first language. They struggled with it at a hearing, and we offered a Division of Insurance employee to sit in and to help with the translation, and it actually worked out very well for the consumer. So it's good to ask. I think it's better to speak to each of the divisions individually about what they have in different languages, but also it's always good to call, and if you need some assistance, see if we can find an employee who speaks that language, and we can direct you to the right resource. Okay,
thank you.
I just wanted to add to this gentleman's hobby. I actually had a call.
He works for me now, by the way.
Will I get a job too?
I might. Let's see what you are offering.
Well, I got a call from somebody that I did not know, and I did not take the call, but just wondered who is it and thought maybe it was important. So when I called back, this person actually harassed me that I'm calling him.
How about
and I'm
that?
like, I was so scared and I did not know what to do. And I still don't know how it happened, but I had a missed call from this gentleman that I called. So I just kind of let go. But I still have that feelings like, what do I do now? You know? So those are the issues that...
Yeah, if it's important, they will call back, is what the commissioner says, but just hang up. That's the best advice on that situation, because it sounds like in this situation you were spoofed, and oftentimes the people who are spoofing you forget why they were calling you and your number, and again, it's not, if they don't have the information right at their fingertips, then that's a sign. So I know it's unsettling when that happens, and I can appreciate that, but scams prey on people's vulnerabilities and the curiosity to call back. So I think it's always best just not to call back, not to engage. If it's important, they're going to call you back.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, here in the front row.
Thank you. For very small businesses and small nonprofits, well, one, I'd ask, is there things that are equivalent to them? And in working with a small nonprofit, tends to be something you're very public oriented and may get public grants. So you don't really want to engage a lot, but you'd like to make sure somebody else doesn't have problems that you have had. And the very small businesses and small nonprofits, the whole idea of going to and paying for a lawyer is just out of the question. So I don't know, on the business side, where, or the nonprofit side, are Massachusetts services?
Well, I think the services, we also, it's the title of my office, it's the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. If there's a license involved under our umbrella, we work very closely with businesses. Our goal, when it comes to small businesses here in the Commonwealth, and the governor's goal, is to make it easier for businesses to do business in the Commonwealth and to have the opportunity to grow. We want you to be able to add jobs. We want you to be able to sell your products or to get your services out to the public. That's an important aspect of it. Under our umbrella, if it's one of the agencies or that it has some interaction with our office, absolutely reach out to us. We offer the same services to businesses as we do to consumers. We're not just consumer-oriented and consumer-focused. It's also, also nonprofits. There are resources in the Attorney General's office when it comes to charities and nonprofits there. A good place to check into as well. If you have specific questions, we're glad that we can take them offline, or you can speak to me and I can try to direct you to the right place or help you out there. But we are Massachusetts, as you've heard, it's not an overused phrase, but we are open for business. We want our small businesses to grow. We want them to be able to thrive here in the Commonwealth. We look at the regulations that are overseeing all our businesses, and the governor recently had an effort, a regulation reform effort that streamlined regulations, making it easier for businesses. So we offer all the same services in advice, education, and advocacy to our businesses here in the Commonwealth. And as I look to our gentleman from the legislature, a lot of representatives in their districts are also a great resource to turn to. We work every day very closely with our state representatives and senators and legislators to make sure that businesses, nonprofits, consumers have as much information available so they can make informed decisions and protect themselves. Have any other questions or comments or accolades? We'll take those too. Yes, sir.
I'll just say thank you very much. I say thank you very much. It's been very informative. I've learned some things I didn't know, and I think they will be useful. Thank you.
Well, I'm so grateful for you being here, as well as all of you for being here. This is just the beginning of the dialogue. We will be out there at two other. This is our fourth, I believe, and we have two other stops to make. One in Shrewsbury, as well as one in Boston. And I'm grateful to Acton Cable Access for giving us this forum, because this allows us the opportunity to get out to even more people. Thank you for that. And I also want to thank my great team up here, the commissioners and agency heads from my divisions and agencies that are all part of the Consumer Affairs family. We take our work very seriously. We care deeply about all the consumers and all the businesses, and we are proud representatives of our Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito. So thank you for being here, and we'll be available when we go off air for additional questions. If you don't want to be so public, we'll stick around for a little bit. But again, you can always call our office. For those viewing this, again, our number 617-973-8787 is our hotline, and we encourage you to reach out to us. Thank you again.